Okay, this is part 2 of the garden tour. My phone overheated the last time and just ended right here when I was talking about the hybrid tomatoes. It's a week or so later. You can see those green beans. Like I was saying, this is our pivot. We're letting the rattlesnakes dry to make dry beans instead of canning them since I hurt my back. And these bush beans will hopefully be coming in before the frost, and I'll be able to get some canned. My back is getting better every day, and hopefully by then I'll be able to get some canning done. You see all the zinnias back there? I just can't. They're just so beautiful, and the butterflies absolutely love them. And those are all volunteer. It looks like they are growing in the pathway, but they're not. They're actually growing in the side of that green bean bed. And when the girls came and weeded for me, I was like, if it's a huge deal, just pull them out. But if you can weed around them, that would be great. And they did. They weeded around them. And they're just laying in that pathway, but they're so gorgeous. I love all those colors together. The orange ones are my favorite, but they're just so gorgeous in there, and the butterflies are just loving them. So since the last video, I had someone come and do some weeding for me. He got this bed weeded out. I've got to get some mulch down. This is my eggplants. They haven't done that great this year because this was my last bed that I put in, and I didn't get it mulched, and so grass was this high in here. So I pulled off all the fruit that it did try to make, but it looks like we've got some little fruit trying to come in. There's a little black one, and then there's a purple striped one down there. Now this orange one, it's been doing perfectly fine, and I've been feeding them to the chickens. The chickens absolutely love those. Those are a different texture. I've got to find a recipe because I don't think you would really use them the way I normally use eggplants. They almost look like an apple inside, like a fruit. This is my asparagus bed. It's got 3-year-old crowns, so we did harvest a little bit. We had some really, really thick asparagus come up, so we harvested a little bit this year. On each side of the asparagus, I had planted squash, but they're all gone now. I don't even think I ended up getting any fruit from those squash plants. I think the vine borers got them pretty quickly. I had planted some zinnias in one of my raised beds, and these are doing really good. I've got this, I had them move this bed over here up against this trellis, and I'm probably going to put some peas. I'm going to pull all this out and put some peas, sugar snap peas, in the back to grow up that little trellis. I was going to move this one too, but it's got some damage to the legs, so I think we're going to build something to set this inside of. The watermelon bed, we weeded it out. I'm going to cover that with paper and some soil, and that'll be sitting waiting for carrots. Carrots did awesome in this pool. Watermelons did not. So if we do watermelons again and try to do watermelon again in this, we might do one watermelon plant. But I think they would do better in the ground somewhere. We just don't have any good in-ground places. This bed was completely taken over by tomatillos. This is the first year I've had any good luck with tomatillos, and it was too much. And they just fell over, and it was just like a jungle in here, and I couldn't get in here, especially after I hurt my back. And they were just loaded with fruit. So I just went ahead and had him take those out. That way I can go ahead and cover this bed. It really didn't have any weeds. It had a thick layer of chips, wood chips on top. But I really need to cover this bed and get it going, get it ready for some fall planting. This area is a volunteer cherry tomato, And I've got to get in there and try to figure out what I'm going to do with that area. There is a small bed that runs beside this trellis. This trellis this year, we did watermelons, the baby bush, and we did a bunch of other type of melons, but the baby bush are the only ones that survived. The other ones were just getting eaten by some sort of bug, I don't know. But the baby bush did okay. We got a few watermelons. I want to do snap peas in here, but as you can see, we have a deer. We had a deer come in, and the only thing that we can think is she either came through this tunnel and then went over there and ate some peas, or she came in underneath. These cattle panels don't go all the way to the ground, so we think she might have scooted under the fence. So my husband we had some skinny goat panel pieces, so he's put those down there in case that's the way she was coming in. And then also he made this fortress to keep her from coming in this way. The other possibility is that she's coming in from the backyard somewhere and coming over the fence from the backyard. I don't think that's what's happening, but I could be wrong. You can see from this angle, this is my front porch, and we walk right out into the garden. This is the strawberry, what we were growing strawberries in, the strawberry kiddie pool. And this is an aster, most likely a native aster. And it's growing out, it's half growing inside the pool and half actually growing in the ground beside the pool. And it's so beautiful in the fall. So I should have chopped it back though. But my son did actually chop it back some, but it just encouraged it to bush out even farther. Obviously I should have chopped it back down to like 12 inches or something. This is my green stalk. This is my first year having one, and I've really enjoyed it, especially once I hurt my back. It's been like the only thing that I can actually mess with. I can come out here and prune some of the basil. I can water it, and I've been propagating the coleus. I love this coleus. It is so beautiful. And it's going to be gorgeous in the fall garden. It looks very fall seasoned. I've got, this is that coleus, and then this is the purple Thai basil, and it has a similar color bloom. So I think these are going to look really good together. That's what the whole top is. And then I can turn it. It's real easy for me to turn even with my back. So it just gives me something that I can actually do every day. Turn the green stalk, snip off the tops of some of the basil, maybe propagate a few coleus. Most of everything in the bottom is strawberries. This jigsaw pepper went really well in here. It is very beautiful. Mostly what I have in here is purples and greens. I've got some purple heart. I put some heather in here. There is a string eggplant. I've harvested quite a few eggplant. The purple ruffles, I think. Basil. Calibrachoa. That's white. I got all of these annuals, the annual flowers on clearance for $1 each. I can't remember what this is, but it's beautiful. Every place I've put it, it's done really well. Shady or in the sun. I've got a coleus down here. And this white calibrachoa. So pretty. I'm really happy with it. I've got some light cucumbers. This is the China Jade, and this is the second or third time I'm trying to grow this. And I just don't think it likes it here in my yard. Not in this spot, but in my yard. I've tried it in a few different spots, a few different times a year, and I don't know. This will be the first cucumber that I'm probably going to harvest from it. All the other ones looked terrible. And I'm trying to keep it watered as much as possible. I've got sweet potatoes planted in the fronts of these grow bags, and then cucumbers planted in the back. This one has a potato I obviously missed growing out the middle. The sweet potatoes I'm basically just growing for feeding vines to the rabbits, but if we get any potatoes, that'll be awesome too. And then I've got a couple of cucumbers over here, and they seem really happy. I've harvested, these are late cucumbers that I started in July, and I've already harvested 3 or 4 cucumbers off of these. There are 2 plants, the Bia Alpha plants, and they're doing really good. Next year, I may do this whole area with the grow bags. So we come through this little path here, back up to the tunnel. The tunnel's just completely covered in bindweed or wild morning glory. This is the orange one, and I absolutely love it, but I also absolutely hate it. I mean, it just completely takes over. And I try not to let it bloom, but it just does what it wants, really. So, and I'm not doing anything with this trellis, so at least the trellis looks like it's got something on it, and it'll be pretty when it blooms. And yes, there will be tons of more weed seeds, but Lord, I mean, at this point, I just work with the weeds. I've got that clearance petunia up there enjoying the shade that it gets in the middle of the day from that vine, and it's lasted. I expected it to be dead midsummer. I've got another clearance one over there that is dead. This is the butterfly pea. I got a plant in the spring from a local plant sale and put it in this planter, and it took over this little corner, and it was beautiful when it was blooming, blue. And now I've got a ton of seeds. I don't know if these seeds grow true. I guess I need to do some research about that, see if I can save those seeds. So this is what has traditionally been my fall-winter garden. We lost the part of the top out of this tree during the big storm that we had last year, and that put a little bit more sun in this garden. And then as you can see, or you might not be able to see, if you can see these brown leaves right on top of the chicken coop, another piece of that top came down in the spring. So now we only have really a few limbs up here shading. So we're getting more sun in this area. So this year, if you watched my spring garden tour video, you know that this far bed was the kitty cat bathroom for our new kitty cats. So I used this as a hedgerow for flowers, and that worked really well. I had poppies and bachelor's buttons and black-eyed Susies, lots of zinnias now. I had a row of sunflowers down the center that I planted. I need to get those out because they look sad. Some millet had volunteered in here, probably from chicken scratch or something. And I've just been letting that grow and throwing it to the chickens. There's a Tithonia red torch that I planted back there from volunteers, the big volunteer up in the front of the garden, and it's been doing good. So I don't know if I'm going to keep this a hedgerow or if I'm going to reincorporate that into the vegetable garden. It did really good, and I think there's some perennials in there that I'd like to dig out, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. It's hard to tell because there is a pathway of grass between that row and this row. This was my kale and broccoli bed that I was trying to see if I could get a harvest from. I planted broccoli late in the spring. So the broccoli, I did end up getting just a few little shoots off of the broccoli, but that was it. More than I would have gotten if I didn't plant anything. So I pulled the broccoli out, but I had intentionally planted the kale down the center because I knew it would probably stay all year. And it has. I have dwarf blue curled kale in here. I have the dazzling blue kale. I think that's it. And they're doing really good. I pulled the broccoli out and I put in my later germinated okra. So they're on the outsides of this bed. I put in a couple of late squash plants. These are lemon squash. And I stuck in a winter squash. We'll see. I'm not sure if there's enough sun back here for that to do anything. And plus I planted late. So this is the food forest. There's a dwarf Arkansas black apple and what's supposed to be a dwarf gala, but you can see the habit on that one is totally different than the habit on this one. And I also have another dwarf tree over there in a pot that's like growing like this one with the really short leaves and limbs, where this one's growing really long limbs. So I've tried to get in touch with Stark Brothers about that, but I haven't heard anything back. I have a blueberry over there that doesn't have any new growth on it, so I'm not sure how it's doing. This one's got a lot of new growth, and this one's got a lot of new growth. We did actually get blueberries off of this one this year, and this is the first year. And then a lot of strawberries. We did get a ton of strawberries. We did have a lot of, all this through here is strawberries, and then the weeds that have just come up around them. It's 2 rows, so I can weed eat between them. But this here is the blue mist flower, so I'm going to let it bloom. Actually, it's already started to bloom. It's middle of August. And the butterflies just adore. And this is a native. It's hard to tell, but it's purpley blue, bluish purple. But we got quite a bit of strawberries for this being the first year and this being hard packed clay back here. And we really didn't do anything but plant them on the ground. We ended up between what my son ate fresh, what I ate fresh, what all the slugs and snails and everything got. Oh, we still ended up with half a gallon in the freezer. So I was pretty happy about that. This is our old apple tree, and I've been doing some pruning on it through the summer because I feed apple limbs to the rabbits. And I'm trying to keep it short, but it wants to grow tall. It's not a dwarf variety, but I'm trying. But it's like 12 or 15 years old, and we've only ever gotten 1 apple from it. So I'm hoping at the very least, with these new dwarf trees, we'll get some good pollination and get some more apples. It was supposed to be a self-pollinating apple, but it is not. So when the guy was here the other day, I went ahead and had him take out these 2 tomato beds. I just had him weed eat them down. I planted a double row of paste tomatoes here, and I planted a double row of cherry tomatoes there. Had I gotten them in the ground earlier, they would have done so much better. But because I didn't get them in the ground late, basically once they started producing, the leaf-footed bugs had gotten so bad that the fruit was just rotting. But I did get quite a few paste tomatoes from the paste tomato bed. But the leaf-footed bugs are just so bad at this point. So I need to make sure that I get my paste tomatoes. Really need to try to get all my tomatoes in as soon as possible. But I tend to do things in stages, so. But I'll try harder next year. But I did get several gallons of paste tomatoes in the freezer. The two that I planted on this side, I think it was called Rio. It did really good. The cherry tomatoes, we left two that were looking really good and had a lot of green tomatoes on them. So hopefully the leaf-footed bugs will be on their way by the time those start to ripen. And this was one paste tomato that was left that still had a lot of new growth on it, and it has a lot of blooms. So we went ahead and stuck it in a tomato cage. And so what I'm going to do with these two beds is cover them with paper mulch, paper feed bags, and probably water really good and then do that. And then either cover with mulch, or I've got compost that's in the process of being finished right now. So if I had the finished compost, I would lay the compost down and then the paper, or the paper and then the compost, I'm not sure. And then mulch really good. But these are going to be my broccoli beds since I planted green beans in what was going to be my broccoli beds. So I'm getting broccoli started here soon. This is another hedgerow. I normally grow garlic in this kind of skinny edge row over here, but I've decided to make it a perennial flower bed. So it's very weedy right now. This is some roselle. I've got some hollyhocks in here. This is the only one that bloomed. This was the first year that I planted them. So hopefully in the spring they'll do better. I've got some, inside all the weeds, I've got some balloon flower, some purple native asters that I got from Sunrise Nursery in Winterville. This is some of the aster right here. I planted a passion flower vine, and I expected it to be what was taken over this fence, but it just got decimated by caterpillars or something. So I'm hoping it's still alive and it'll come back next year. But anyway, I have a bunch of perennials that I'm waiting. I've got some comfrey planted down there. There's some pretty pink clover. I have a few other bulbs planted down here that'll come up in the spring. But the apple tree will kind of shade these beds for the broccoli. I'm hoping to cover them with insect netting, and we'll see how that goes. This side of the garden is really not meant for summer growing since it is shaded for so late in the day. So the fact that I got any harvest out of this side of the garden was just icing on the cake. It does seem like it does get some morning sun, more morning sun in this area than I do over here because of the trees. And there's a little gap right there that the morning sun does get into this area. So the tomatoes actually they grew well over here. And now that we don't have the trees across the road, it is getting some evening sun over here instead of going into the shade in the evening, late evening. So I'm definitely going to use this. Well, we'll see. We'll see what's going on with the winter garden. But this works really well for the winter garden because I can get things in August, September, and they're shaded for a good bit of the day. So that's good. All right, well, these are the perennials that I have. As soon as I get where I can, or get somebody, as soon as it gets good in fall, not so hot, I'm going to get these perennials. I've got all different kinds of stuff that I want to put up against that little fence back there. So that'll just be loaded with flowers in the spring and summer and be perennial, so I don't have to replant it. And I think that's it. I think that is about it. While the guy was here weeding for me, he he weed eated these down for me real good. So now I've got to get somebody to come do cardboard and mulch, and I got to get a load of mulch. So that's where we're at. I'll probably do a chicken update and a chicken tour to record how well or what the chicken situation was this year, how it went, our first year incubating, and what we might do different next year, and what did really good this year, and all that jazz. So, I hope y'all enjoyed these 2 garden tours. I've got some, I don't know, in the last garden tour, I think all the jalapenos were green, but now I've got some turning red. So I've got to get them off and get something done with them. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.